Park Do-yun stood at the edge of the Grand Hall, his translation device pressed against his ear. The Galactic Concord Station was hosting its biggest diplomatic event of the year, and Earth's small delegation had been invited to observe. Not participate, just watch and learn. Humanity was still new to the galactic community, and everyone made sure they remembered that fact. The hall was filled with beings from dozens of worlds. Some had scales that shimmered like jewels. Others floated above the ground on invisible currents. A few had so many eyes that Do-hyun had stopped counting. He had been working as a translator for 3 years now, and he still felt small in rooms like this. "Stay near the back," Ambassador Kang Mirai had told him before the event. "Listen, translate, and don't draw attention." Do-hyun was good at not drawing attention. Before first contact, he had been a literature teacher at a small school in Busan. He loved quiet mornings and old books. When the aliens came and humanity needed people who could learn new languages quickly, Do-hyun had volunteered. He had a gift for understanding not just words, but meanings. Still, he never forgot that he was representing a species that most aliens considered barely worth noticing. The music in the hall suddenly stopped. Every conversation died. Do-hyun looked toward the main entrance and saw why. The Valorian delegation had arrived. The Valorians were one of the 3 great powers in the galaxy. Their empire controlled hundreds of worlds. Their ships could cross the galaxy in days. And their royal family was considered the most prestigious bloodline among the stars. Emperor Solrath Van did not come in person, but he had sent something more valuable. Princess Aelith Van walked into the hall, and Do-hyun understood why the room had gone silent. She was tall and graceful, with silver-blue skin that seemed to glow from within. Her eyes were large and luminescent, shifting between purple and gold as she moved. Her white hair flowed behind her like water. She wore a simple gown that somehow looked more expensive than everything else in the room combined. But it was not her beauty that struck Do-hyun. It was her expression. She looked tired. Not physically tired, but tired in a deeper way. Tired in her soul. The moment she entered, the powerful beings in the room began to move toward her. Prince Raxon of the Dravani Collective was first. He was massive, with dark red skin and 4 muscular arms. His people were warriors, and he walked like someone who had never lost a fight. "Princess Aelith," he said, his voice booming across the hall, "your beauty shames the stars themselves. It would honor my collective if you would allow me to escort you this evening." Aelith smiled politely. "You are kind, Prince Raxon, but I prefer to walk alone." Raxon's eyes narrowed, but he stepped aside. Before Aelith could take 3 steps, Lord Thesson of the Chiral Federation appeared before her. He was thin and elegant, with pale green skin and eyes that calculated everything they saw. "Princess," he said smoothly, "my Federation has prepared a gift for you. A planet in the Amber Nebula, untouched and beautiful. It would be yours, as a symbol of our admiration." "A generous offer," Aelith replied. "I will consider it." She walked on. More suitors approached. Each one offered something grand: military protection, trade agreements, ancient artifacts, access to forbidden knowledge. They spoke of alliances and power and the glory that would come from joining their houses together. Aelith responded to each with the same polite smile, the same careful words, the same tired eyes. Do-hyun watched from his corner. He had no intention of approaching her. What would a human translator say to a princess whose hand could reshape the galaxy? He was nobody. Less than nobody in this room. He turned his attention back to his work, listening to conversations and making notes for Ambassador Kang. The Dravani were unhappy about new trade routes. The Kirel were secretly negotiating with a minor species for mineral rights. Useful information for Earth's slow climb toward relevance. An hour passed. The crowd around Aelith never thinned. Do-hyun noticed that she had barely eaten or drunk anything. Every time she reached for a glass, someone new appeared to demand her attention. Then something unexpected happened. The princess slipped away. Do-hyun saw her move toward a side corridor, while her attendants were distracted by Prince Raxon's latest loud declaration. She walked quickly but gracefully, and within moments, she was gone from the main hall. Do-hyun should have ignored it. It was not his business. But his translation duties had brought him near that same corridor, and he needed to check his notes in a quiet place. He told himself it was coincidence as he walked in the same direction. He found her standing by a large window that looked out at the stars. The corridor was empty except for the two of them. Her shoulders were slightly slumped, and for a moment she looked less like a princess and more like someone who simply needed a break. Do-hyun stopped walking. He did not want to disturb her. He started to turn around. "You are not going to approach me?" Her voice was soft but clear. Do-hyun froze. "I apologize, princess," he said, bowing his head. "I did not mean to intrude." "You did not intrude. You were leaving." She turned to look at him. Her luminescent eyes studied his face with curiosity. "That is unusual. Everyone else in that hall would have seen this as an opportunity." Do-hyun was not sure what to say. "You looked like you wanted to be alone. I thought I should respect that." Aelith tilted her head. "You are human." "Yes, princess." "Your species is very new to the conquered." "We are, princess." She was quiet for a moment. Then something changed in her expression. The polite mask she had worn all evening cracked slightly, and underneath it, Do-hyun saw genuine curiosity. "What is your name?" "Park Do-hyun. I am a translator for Earth's delegation." "Park Do-hyun," she repeated. The way she said his name was careful, like she was memorizing it. "Thank you, Park Do-hyun, for respecting what I needed without being asked." She turned back to the window. Do-hyun understood that he was dismissed. He bowed again and walked away, his heart beating faster than it should. He did not look back. He did not know that Aelith watched his reflection in the window until he disappeared. He did not know that in a room full of princes and lords and beings of immense power, he was the first person all evening who had treated her like a person instead of a prize. He was just a translator. She was the most desired princess in the galaxy. But something had begun. The days that followed were filled with formal dinners, diplomatic meetings, and endless ceremonies. The Galactic Concord Station never slept, and neither did its politics. Park Do-hyun worked long hours, translating conversations and preparing reports for Ambassador Kong Mirai. He tried not to think about the princess. It was difficult. Everywhere he went, people were talking about Princess Aelith. Prince Raxon had publicly declared his intention to court her, calling it an inevitable union of strength. Lord Thesson had made a similar announcement, though his words were more careful, speaking of mutual benefit and lasting prosperity. Other suitors from lesser powers had also stepped forward, each hoping to win the greatest prize in the galaxy. Aelith attended every function with the same polite smile. She danced with princes. She accepted gifts from lords. She listened to proposals that would make lesser beings weep with desire. And through it all, her eyes remained tired. Do-hyun watched from the edges of these events as he always did. He told himself he was simply doing his job, observing, translating, learning. On the fourth night, there was a cultural exchange event. Each species was invited to share something from their world. The Dravani performed a war dance that shook the floor. The Kyril displayed mathematical art that shifted and changed based on who was looking at it. A small amphibian species sang songs that made half the audience cry. Then it was humanity's turn. Ambassador Kang had chosen Do-hyun for this task. "You were a teacher," she had said. You know how to explain things simply. Make them understand us. Do-hyun stood before the gathered aliens, feeling very small. He had no army to display, no advanced technology to demonstrate, no art that could shift reality. He had only words. Humans tell stories, he began. His voice was quiet, but the room's technology carried it to every ear. We have told stories since before we could write, around fires, in caves, under stars we did not yet understand. Some aliens looked bored. Others looked curious. Do-hyun continued. Our stories are not always about victory. Many of our greatest tales are about loss, about sacrifice, about choosing what is right even when it costs everything. He talked about old myths and legends, heroes who gave up power for love, kings who walked away from thrones to protect their people, ordinary people who stood against impossible odds, not because they could win, but because standing was the right thing to do. We believe, Do-hyun said, that the journey matters more than the destination, that how you treat others defines who you are, that love, freely given, is worth more than love that is bought or demanded. When he finished, there was polite applause. Most aliens seemed to find his presentation quaint, cute perhaps. A young species talking about feelings while the real powers discussed territory and trade. But not everyone felt that way. Do-hyun returned to his place at the edge of the room. A few minutes later, he felt someone standing beside him. He turned and found Princess Aelith. Your presentation was interesting, she said quietly. Do-hyun bowed his head. Thank you, Princess. I am sure it seemed simple compared to the others. Simple is not the same as lesser. She looked at him with those shifting eyes. Your people value the journey over the destination. That is a strange idea to most species here. We are taught to value results, outcomes, victory. Perhaps that is why humans lose so often, Do-hyun said with a small smile. To his surprise, Aelith laughed. It was a quiet sound, almost hidden, but it was real. Not the polite laugh she gave to princes. You are honest, she said. That is rare. Before Do-hyun could respond, one of her attendants appeared. Princess, Prince Raxon wishes to speak with you about tomorrow's ceremony. The mask returned to Aelith's face. Of course. Tell him I will be there shortly. The attendant bowed and left. Aelith looked at Do-hyun one more time. I enjoyed your stories, Park Do-hyun. Perhaps you will tell me more someday. She walked away, and Do-hyun was left with a strange feeling in his chest. That night, he could not sleep. He stood by the window of his small quarters and looked out at the stars. He was a translator, a nobody. He had no business thinking about a princess who could reshape the galaxy with a single word, but he could not stop thinking about the way she had laughed, real and unguarded. Just for a moment. The next evening, something unexpected happened. Do-hyun was walking through the observation deck, a quiet place where few diplomats came. He liked it here. The view of the nebula was beautiful, and no one expected him to translate anything. He found Aelith waiting for him. She was alone, which should have been impossible. Princesses did not go anywhere alone. But here she was, standing by the great window, looking at the stars. You come here often? She said, without turning around. I asked the station systems where the human translator spends his free time. Do-hyun stopped. You were looking for me, Princess? I wanted to talk. Actually talk. Without attendants listening to every word, without princes waiting to interrupt. She finally turned to face him. Is that acceptable? I am honored, Princess. But I am not sure what I could offer you. Honesty. She moved closer to him. Everyone in this station wants something from me. Alliances, power, status. They see me as a means to an end. But you? She studied his face. You walked away when you first saw me. You gave me space without being asked. Why? Do-hyun thought carefully before answering. You looked like you needed to breathe, like the weight of everyone's expectations was crushing you. I thought the kindest thing I could do was leave you alone. Aelith was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. No one has ever done that before. Not once in my entire life. They talked for an hour. Do-hyun told her about Earth, about oceans and mountains and cities full of people who had only recently learned they were not alone in the universe. Aelith told him about the burden of being a princess, about growing up knowing that her marriage would be a political decision, not a personal one, about feeling like an object rather than a person. What do humans value in a partner? She asked suddenly. Do-hyun considered the question. Many things, attraction, compatibility, shared interests, but I think the most important thing is being seen, having someone who understands who you really are, not just what you represent. Aelith looked at him with an expression he could not read. I think, she said slowly, that humans may be wiser than the galaxy gives them credit for. She left soon after, returning to her duties and her attendants and her endless line of suitors. But something had changed. Do-hyun felt it in his bones, and he was certain, though he tried to deny it, that she felt it too. Word spread quickly through the Galactic Concord station. The princess of the Valorian Empire had been seen speaking privately with a human, a translator of all things, someone with no power, no title, and no significance. The reaction was immediate. Prince Raxon was the first to respond. He cornered Do-hyun in a corridor outside the translation offices, his massive body blocking any escape. Two of his guards stood behind him, their hands on weapons. "Human!" Raxon growled. The word sounded like an insult. "I have heard disturbing rumors." Do-hyun kept his face calm. His heart was pounding, but he had learned long ago that showing fear only made things worse. "I am not sure what rumors you mean, Prince Raxon. Do not play games with me." Raxon stepped closer. He was nearly 3 times Do-hyun's size. "The princess is mine. She will be mine. Our union will create the greatest military alliance in galactic history. And you think a pathetic creature from a pathetic species can interfere with that?" Do-hyun did not step back. "I have not interfered with anything, Prince. I am a translator. I translate words, that is all." "Then why does she speak with you?" "Perhaps because I listen without demanding anything in return." Raxon's 4 hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Do-hyun was certain the prince would strike him. One blow from those arms would shatter every bone in his body, but Raxon did not strike. Instead, he laughed. It was an ugly sound, full of contempt. "You listen. How touching. How human." He leaned down until his face was inches from Do-hyun's. "Let me be clear, translator. If you continue to waste the princess's time, I will personally ensure that your species regrets ever leaving your tiny planet. Do you understand?" "I understand your words, Prince." "Good." Raxon straightened and walked away, his guards following. Do-hyun stayed still until they were gone. Only then did he allow himself to breathe. Ambassador Kang Mirae called him to her office an hour later. "Sit down, Do-hyun." He sat. The ambassador looked older than usual, tired, worried. "I have received complaints," she said, "from the Dravani, from the Kirel, from 3 other species. They all want to know why you are spending time with Princess Aelith." "Ambassador, I have done nothing improper. We have simply talked." "I know." Kang sighed. "That is the problem. In this galaxy, attention is currency. And you have somehow captured the attention of the most valuable person at this summit. That makes you a target." Do-hyun nodded slowly. "What would you have me do?" "Be careful. Very careful. Earth cannot afford to be dragged into a scandal. We are too small, too weak, too new. If the Valorians or the Dravani decide we have insulted them, they could crush us without effort. I understand, Ambassador. Kang studied his face. Do you? Because I see something in your eyes that worries me, Do-yun. You are not just being polite to the princess. You care about her. Do-yun was silent. He could not deny it. Be very careful, Kang repeated, for all our sakes. That evening, Lord Thesson requested a private meeting with Do-yun. Unlike Raxon, Thesson did not use threats or intimidation. He was smooth, polished, and somehow more dangerous because of it. I wanted to thank you, Thesson said, his pale green skin catching the light. You have done me a great service. Do-yun frowned. I do not understand, Lord Thesson. You have distracted Prince Raxon. He is so focused on you now that he is making mistakes, saying foolish things in public, acting jealous and aggressive. This helps my position considerably. I did not intend to help anyone's position. Of course not. You are simply a humble translator who happened to catch a princess's eye. Thesson smiled, but his eyes were cold. But let me offer you some advice. When the princess chooses her husband, she will choose power. She has no other option. Her father will never allow her to marry beneath her station. And you, my friend, are so far beneath her station that you might as well not exist. Do-hyun met his gaze. Thank you for the advice. Think nothing of it. Just remember your place. Thesson left with the same smooth grace he had arrived with. Do-hyun sat alone in his quarters, thinking about everything that had happened. They were right. All of them. He was nobody, a translator from a species that the galaxy considered barely civilized. He had no power, no wealth, no armies. Princess Aelith lived in a world where marriage was about empires, not feelings. He should stop talking to her. It would be the smart thing to do, the safe thing, the thing that protected both of them. But when she found him on the observation deck the next night, he could not walk away. Prince Raxon threatened you, she said. It was not a question. He expressed his concerns. He is a fool. Aelith's eyes flashed with anger. He thinks strength means size and weapons. He understands nothing about true strength. What is true strength, princess? She was quiet for a moment. I asked my tutors that question when I was young. They told me strength was power, the ability to force others to obey, to crush enemies, to dominate. And what do you believe now? Aelith looked at him, really looked at him, as if she was seeing past his ordinary face into something deeper. I am starting to believe that strength might be something else entirely. The ability to stay calm when others rage, to listen when others demand, to walk away from conflict instead of creating more of it. She stepped closer to him. Raxon threatened you, and you did not try to prove yourself. You did not challenge him, or boast, or pretend to be more than you are. You simply stood your ground and let him leave. That took more courage than anything he has ever done. Do-hyun felt heat rise to his face. I did not feel courageous. I felt terrified. That is what makes it courage. Aelith smiled, and it was not the polite smile she gave to princes. It was real. A person without fear cannot be brave. Only someone who is afraid and acts anyway deserves to be called courageous. They talked until the station's lights dimmed for the artificial night cycle. Aelith asked him about fear, about hope, about what humans dreamed of when they looked at the stars. Do-hyun asked her about loneliness, about duty, about what she wished for when no one was watching. When they finally parted, Aelith took his hand briefly. Her skin was cool against his, but the touch sent warmth through his entire body. Thank you, Park Do-hyun, she said softly, for seeing me when everyone else only sees what I represent. She walked away into the artificial night. Do-hyun watched her go, knowing that he was in deeper than he had ever intended. and knowing that he could not bring himself to regret it. The Imperial Summit began on the 7th day. Emperor Solrath Von arrived in person, his ship appearing from hyperspace with a flash of light that made the station's sensors scream warnings. The Emperor was old by Valorian standards, but his presence filled every room he entered. When he walked, others moved aside. When he spoke, others listened. He had come for one reason, to watch his daughter choose a husband. Do-Yun was assigned to translate for Earth's delegation during the summit. It was an important task, and he focused on it completely. He tried not to look at Aelith, who sat beside her father on a raised platform at the center of the Great Assembly Hall. The hall was enormous. Thousands of diplomats and nobles from across the galaxy filled the seats. Holographic projectors broadcast the proceedings to billions of viewers on countless worlds. Everyone wanted to see who the princess would choose. Prince Raxon presented his case first. He stood before the assembly in ceremonial armor, his 4 arms spread wide. The Dravani Collective offers Princess Aelith not just a husband, but a legacy, he declared. Our warriors are the finest in the galaxy. Our ships are unmatched in battle. With our union, the Valorian Empire and the Dravani Collective will create a force that no enemy can challenge. We offer strength. We offer victory. We offer eternal glory. The Dravani delegation cheered. Many in the audience nodded with approval. Military strength was respected in the galaxy. Lord Thesson spoke next. His presentation was different, smooth and sophisticated. The Chiral Federation offers Princess Aelith prosperity, he said. Our technologies improve lives across 1,000 worlds. Our trade networks bring wealth wherever they reach. With our union, the Valorian Empire will have access to resources beyond imagination. We offer progress. We offer innovation. We offer a future of unlimited potential. The Chiral delegation applauded politely. Economic power was also respected. Other suitors made their cases. A prince from the Helian Dominion offered cultural treasures. A duchess from the Nomari systems offered scientific secrets. Each presentation was grander than the last, each promise bigger and more impressive. Through it all, Aelith sat motionless. Her face showed nothing. Her eyes revealed nothing. She was the perfect princess, giving no hint of what she was thinking. But Do-Yun knew her well enough now to see the tiny signs, the slight tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers pressed against her armrest, the almost invisible tightness around her eyes. She was overwhelmed, and she was alone. During the midday recess, the delegations broke into smaller groups. Do-Hyun stepped outside the hall to clear his head. He found a quiet balcony overlooking an artificial garden and stood there, breathing slowly. He did not expect Aelith to find him, but she did. They will notice you are gone, he said quietly. Let them notice. Her voice was strained. I cannot breathe in that room. Everyone wants something from me. Everyone is watching me, waiting for me to make a decision that will shape the galaxy. It is a heavy burden. You have a gift for understatement. She moved to stand beside him, looking out at the garden. What would you do, Do-Hyun, if you were in my position? He thought carefully before answering. I would ask myself who I want beside me on my worst days, not my best. Aelith turned to look at him. What do you mean? Prince Raxon offers victory. Lord Thesson offers wealth. These are things for good days, when everything goes well. But life is not always good. There are bad days, failures, losses. Times when everything seems hopeless. He met her eyes. I would choose the person who would still be there during those times, the person who would hold my hand in the darkness, not just stand beside me in the light. Aelith was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. No one has asked me what I want. Not Raxon, not Thesson, not any of them. They tell me what they can offer, what they can give, what they can do for me, but no one has ever asked what I actually want. What do you want, princess? She looked at him with those luminescent eyes, and he saw something in them that made his heart ache. Loneliness, deep and old and terrible. I want to be seen, she said. Not as a princess, not as a prize, not as a means to an end. I want someone who looks at me and sees me, just me, Aelith. A person with fears and hopes and dreams. Someone who is tired of being wanted by everyone and truly known by no one. Do-Yun did not think about what he was doing. He simply reached out and took her hand. I see you, he said softly. I have seen you since the first night, when you needed to breathe and everyone else demanded your attention. I saw you then. I see you now. Aelith's fingers tightened around his. Her eyes shimmered with something that might have been tears. Valorians rarely cried, but she was close. Why? She asked. Why do you see me when others do not? Perhaps because humans are good at looking past the surface. We are small and weak and new to the galaxy. We cannot compete with strength or wealth or technology, so we learn to look for other things, the heart beneath the armor, the person beneath the title. They stood together in silence, hands joined, looking out at the artificial garden. For a moment, the galaxy's politics did not matter. The summit did not matter. The watching billions did not matter. There was only Aelith and Do-Hyun, two people who had somehow found each other in the vast darkness between stars. I need to return, Aelith finally said. They will be looking for me. I know. She did not release his hand immediately. Instead, she looked at him one more time. You have given me something to think about, Park Do-Hyun. Something I never expected to find at this summit. What is that, princess? Hope. She let go of his hand and walked back toward the assembly hall. Do-Hyun watched her go, feeling the warmth of her touch still lingering on his skin. He knew he should be afraid. He knew that what he was feeling was dangerous. A human and a Valorian princess, a translator and the most desired woman in the galaxy. It was impossible. It was foolish. It would only end in heartbreak. But as he watched her disappear through the doors, he realized something that changed everything. He did not care about the consequences. He cared about her. And somehow, impossibly, she seemed to care about him too. The night before Princess Aelith's announcement, Lord Thesan came to Do-Hyun's quarters. Do-Hyun opened the door to find the chiral diplomat standing in the corridor with two guards. Thesan smiled, but his eyes were cold and calculating. May I come in? He asked. I have a proposal for you. Do-Hyun did not want to let him in, but refusing would only cause more problems. He stepped aside. Thesan walked into the small room and looked around with obvious disdain. Humans really do live simply. I suppose you cannot miss what you have never had. What do you want, Lord Thesan? Straight to business. I appreciate that. Thesan turned to face him. I have been watching you, translator, watching how the princess seeks you out, how she talks to you differently than she talks to anyone else. I am not a fool. I know what is happening between you. Do-Hyun kept his face blank. Nothing is happening between us. Please, do not insult my intelligence. Thesan reached into his robe and pulled out a small device. He pressed a button, and a hologram appeared in the air between them. It showed Do-Hyun and Aelith on the observation deck, holding hands, talking quietly, looking at each other in ways that went far beyond friendship. The station has surveillance everywhere, Thesan said. I have friends in security. They were kind enough to share these recordings with me. Do-Hyun felt cold. What do you want? I want Princess Aelith to choose me, and you are going to help me. Why would I do that? Thesan's smile widened. Because if you do not, I will release these recordings to every news network in the galaxy. The princess caught in a secret relationship with a primitive human. Can you imagine the scandal? Her reputation would be destroyed. Her father would disown her. The Valorian Empire would become a laughingstock. Do-hyun clenched his fists. You would destroy her life just to win? I would do far worse than that to achieve my goals. That is how one succeeds in this galaxy, translator. Strength and ruthlessness, something your species does not seem to understand. What exactly do you want me to do? Thesson leaned closer. Tomorrow, before the announcement, you will go to the princess. You will tell her that she should choose me. You will convince her that I am the right choice. You will use whatever influence you have over her to guide her decision. And if she refuses to listen? Then you will tell her that you do not care about her, that your conversations meant nothing, that she was foolish to think a human could ever truly understand her. Thesson's eyes glittered with cruel amusement. Break her heart, translator. Make her believe she has no options except me. Do-hyun was silent for a long moment. His mind raced through possibilities. He could agree, buy time, try to find another way. He could fight. Though Thesson's guards would stop him easily. He could run, though there was nowhere on the station he could hide. But all those options required him to betray Aelith, to hurt her, to use her trust against her. No, Do-hyun said. Thesson blinked. Excuse me? I said no. I will not do it. You understand what I will do if you refuse? Yes. You will release the recordings. There will be a scandal. Aelith's reputation will suffer. Earth may face consequences. Do-hyun met Thesson's eyes without flinching. But I will not manipulate someone I care about. I will not use lies to control her choices, and I will not become the kind of person who hurts others to protect himself. Thesson stared at him. For the first time, he seemed genuinely surprised. You are either very brave or very stupid, human. Probably both. But I would rather be destroyed with my integrity than survive by becoming something I hate. Thesson was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed, a cold and bitter sound. So be it. You have made your choice. He walked out of Do-hyun's quarters without another word. His guards followed. The door closed, and Do-hyun was left alone. He sat down heavily on his bed. His hands were shaking. He had just made an enemy of one of the most powerful beings at the summit. He had probably doomed Earth's diplomatic efforts. He had certainly destroyed his own career. But he had not betrayed Aelith. That was what mattered. The next morning, the scandal broke. Thesson had kept his word. The recordings appeared on every news network in the galaxy. Within hours, everyone knew that Princess Aelith had been meeting secretly with a human translator. The footage was edited to look as damaging as possible. Intimate conversations became evidence of a forbidden affair. Simple hand-holding became proof of betrayal. The Valorian delegation erupted in fury. Emperor Solrath summoned his daughter to a private meeting. Prince Raksin demanded that Do-hyun be expelled from the station immediately. Ambassador Kang Mirai looked at Do-hyun with a mixture of anger and pity. "What have you done?" she asked. "I refuse to be blackmailed," Do-hyun replied. "Lord Thesson wanted me to manipulate the princess. I said no. So instead, you let him destroy everything? He would have destroyed it anyway. At least this way, I did not help him." Kong shook her head. "I hope your integrity keeps you warm, Do-hyun, because your career is over." The day passed in chaos. Do-hyun was confined to his quarters while diplomats argued about what to do with him. The human delegation faced demands for apologies, reparations, and the permanent expulsion of all Earth representatives from the conquered. Evening came. Do-hyun sat alone, waiting for whatever punishment would come. Then his door opened, and Princess Aelith walked in. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with an emotion he could not identify. She closed the door behind her and stood looking at him. "Lord Thesson came to you last night," she said. He tried to blackmail you. Yes. He told you to manipulate me, to break my heart, to force me to choose him. Yes. And you refused. Yes. Aelith stepped closer. Why? You knew what would happen. You knew he would release those recordings. You knew your career would be destroyed, that Earth would suffer, that everything would fall apart. Why did you refuse? Do-hyun stood to face her. Because I care about you, and I could not hurt you, even to save myself. Aelith's expression changed. The mask she always wore cracked and fell away, and underneath it was something raw and vulnerable and beautiful. I confronted my father today, she said. I showed him the full surveillance footage. Not just what Thesson released, but everything. Every conversation we had, every moment we shared. What did he say? He asked me the same question I asked you. Why this human? Why someone with no power, no status, no ability to help the Empire? Aelith's voice trembled slightly. And I told him the truth. I told him that you are the only person in this galaxy who has ever truly seen me, who has never wanted anything from me except my happiness. She reached out and took his hands in hers. My father is furious. The galaxy is watching. Everything is chaos. But I know one thing with absolute certainty. What is that? Tomorrow I make my choice. And nothing Lord Thessan or Prince Raxin or anyone else does will change what I have decided. She squeezed his hands and left as quietly as she had come. Do-hyun stood alone in his quarters, his heart beating with fear and hope in equal measure. Tomorrow, everything would change. The great assembly hall was more crowded than it had ever been. Every seat was filled. Thousands of diplomats, nobles, and representatives from across the galaxy had gathered to witness Princess Aelith's announcement. Holographic projectors broadcast the event to billions of viewers on countless worlds. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. Park Do-hyun stood at the back of the hall with Earth's delegation. Ambassador Kang Mirai had allowed him to attend, though she had warned him not to draw attention to himself. The scandal was still fresh. Every alien in the room knew his face now. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with contempt, a few with something that might have been pity. Prince Raxin stood at the front of the hall, his forearms crossed over his chest. He looked confident, arrogant. He had already told everyone who would listen that the scandal would work in his favor. No princess would choose a weak human over a Dravani warrior after such public humiliation. Lord Thessan stood nearby, his pale green face showing nothing. He was still calculating, still planning. Do-hyun knew that Thessan would not give up easily. Whatever happened today, the chiral diplomat would find a way to turn it to his advantage. Emperor Solrath Vaughn sat on a raised platform, his expression unreadable. He had not spoken publicly since the scandal broke. No one knew what he was thinking. No one knew what he would do if his daughter made an unexpected choice. A horn sounded. The room fell silent. Princess Aelith walked into the hall. She wore a gown of pure white that flowed around her like light itself. Her silver-blue skin glowed softly, and her luminescent eyes shone brighter than Do-hyun had ever seen them. She moved with grace and purpose, and every eye in the room followed her. She climbed the steps to the central platform and stood before the assembled galaxy. "Thank you all for coming," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "I know you have traveled far to witness this moment. I know you have expectations. I know many of you believe you already know what I will say." She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the crowd. "For my entire life I have been told that my marriage would be a political decision, an alliance of power and strategy, a transaction that would benefit the Empire. I was raised to accept this, to see myself as a tool for greater purposes." Prince Raxin smiled. Lord Thessan leaned forward slightly. "I have received many offers," Aelith continued. Prince Raxon offers military strength. The Dravani Collective would make powerful allies. Lord Thesson offers economic prosperity. The Chiral Federation's resources are unmatched. Others have offered technologies, territories, secrets that could reshape the galaxy. She was quiet for a moment. But no one asked what I wanted. No one asked who I am beneath the crown. No one looked at me and saw a person instead of a prize. The smile faded from Raxon's face. Thesson's eyes narrowed. Except one. Aelith looked toward the back of the hall. Her eyes found Do-hyun. A human translator taught me something that all the princes and lords in the galaxy could not. He taught me that true partnership is not about power. It is not about what someone can give you or what advantages they bring. It is about being seen, being understood, being valued for who you are, not what you represent. Murmurs swept through the crowd. Do-hyun felt thousands of eyes turn toward him. He was threatened by those who wanted to keep me for themselves, Aelith said. He was offered the chance to manipulate me, to break my heart, to save himself at my expense. He refused. He chose to protect me even when it cost him everything. Her voice grew stronger. That is the kind of person I want beside me. Not someone who sees me as a means to an end, but someone who sees me as I am. Not someone who offers armies or wealth, but someone who offers presence and honesty and care. She stepped forward, her eyes locked on Do-hyun. Everyone in this galaxy wants me. Princes and lords and rulers of great empires. They want my title, my bloodline, my political value. She took a breath. But I choose you, human. Park Do-hyun, I choose you. The hall erupted. Prince Raxon roared with fury. He slammed his 4 fists against the nearest pillar, cracking the stone. This is madness. You would shame your empire for a primitive, a translator. I demand this insult be answered. Lord Thesson's composure finally cracked. This cannot be permitted. The Chiral Federation will not accept this mockery of galactic tradition. There will be consequences. Diplomats shouted at each other. Guards moved to control the chaos. The holographic projectors broadcast the pandemonium to billions of watching viewers. Through it all, Emperor Solrath remained silent. His eyes moved from his daughter to Do-hyun and back again. Do-hyun walked forward. The crowd parted around him, some in shock, some in anger, some in disbelief. He climbed the steps to the platform and stood before the princess who had just chosen him over the galaxy. "Princess," he said quietly, "are you certain?" "I have never been more certain of anything." "I am nobody. I have nothing to offer you. You offer me yourself. That is more than anyone else ever has." Do-hyun looked at the chaos around them, at the furious princes and calculating lords, at the shocked diplomats and the watching billions, at the father who had not yet spoken. "Then I will do my best to be worthy of that trust," he said. He did not make grand declarations. He did not promise power or glory or eternal devotion. He simply bowed his head and spoke the truth. Emperor Solrath finally rose from his seat. The hall fell silent. The Emperor walked slowly toward his daughter and the human who stood beside her. His face was impossible to read. Every being in the room held their breath. He stopped before them. His eyes, ancient and powerful, studied Do-hyun for a long moment. "You refused to betray my daughter," the Emperor said, "even when it would have saved you." "Yes, Your Majesty. You stood your ground against threats from beings far more powerful than yourself." "Yes, Your Majesty." "And you made no promises you could not keep, no boasts, no claims of greatness." "I have no greatness to claim, Your Majesty. I am only a man who cares for your daughter." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, something changed in his expression. "Perhaps," he said, "there is more strength in that than in all the armies of the Dravani." He turned to face the assembly. My daughter has made her choice, and I will not forbid it. The hall erupted again, but this time there was something else beneath the chaos. Wonder, disbelief, and perhaps, in some hearts, a small spark of hope. The galaxy had just witnessed something it had never seen before, and nothing would ever be the same. The days after Princess Aelith's announcement were filled with chaos and change. Prince Raxon left the Galactic Concord Station in fury, promising that the Dravani Collective would remember this insult. Lord Thesson departed more quietly, but his cold eyes promised future schemes and calculations. Other suitors scattered to their respective empires, some angry, some confused, some secretly relieved that they had not been chosen for a life of political marriage. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. A human had been chosen by the most desired princess in the known universe. Not a warrior, not a lord, not anyone of power or significance. Just a translator from a small, young species that most had barely noticed. Reactions varied. Some species mocked the Valorians for allowing such a ridiculous choice. Others studied humans with new interest, wondering what qualities this strange species possessed that could capture a princess's heart. A few, quietly and secretly, felt hope. If a princess could choose love over politics, perhaps things did not always have to follow the old, cold rules. Ambassador Kang Mirai called Do-hyun to her office 3 days after the announcement. "You have created an interesting situation," she said. Her voice was dry, but her eyes were not unkind. "Earth is suddenly important. Everyone wants to understand us. They want to know how a human managed to do what princes and lords could not." "I did not manage anything," Do-hyun replied. "I simply treated her like a person." "Yes." Apparently that was revolutionary. Kong leaned back in her chair. "You are no longer just a translator, Do-hyun. Like it or not, you have become the most important human in galactic politics. I hope you are ready for what that means." Do-hyun was not sure he was ready, but he would try. Emperor Solrath requested a private meeting with him the following day. Do-hyun entered the Emperor's chambers with his heart pounding, expecting judgment, demands, or threats. Instead, the Emperor offered him a seat. "You are afraid of me," Solrath observed. "Yes, Your Majesty." "Good. That shows wisdom. But let me be clear about something." The Emperor's ancient eyes studied him carefully. "I have not fully accepted you. I have merely chosen not to forbid my daughter's choice. You must prove yourself over time." "I understand." "Your Majesty." "Do you? Aelith is not simply choosing a husband. She is choosing someone who will stand beside her as she takes on responsibilities within the Empire. You will be watched constantly, judged by every action, measured against standards you cannot possibly meet." Solrath leaned forward. "Many will want you to fail. Some will try to make you fail. I will do my best, Your Majesty. Your best may not be enough. Then I will do more than my best." The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but it was there. "Aelith was right about one thing," he said. "You do not make promises you cannot keep. That is rare in this galaxy." The meeting ended without any clear conclusion. Do-hyun was not welcomed into the family, but he was not rejected either. It was a beginning. Aelith found him on the observation deck that evening. They stood together, looking out at the stars as they had so many times before. "My father spoke to you," she said. "He warned me that I must prove myself, that many will want me to fail. He is right. The galaxy does not change easily. There will be enemies, challenges, people who refuse to accept what we have chosen." Do-hyun nodded. "I know. Are you afraid?" "Sometimes." She turned to look at him. "But I have been afraid my entire life. Afraid of disappointing my father. Afraid of making the wrong choice. Afraid of being alone." Her eyes softened. For the first time, I am not afraid of what comes next. Why not? Because I will not face it alone. Whatever happens, I will have someone beside me who sees me for who I am. That changes everything. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the nebula's colors shift and swirl. What happens now? Do-hyun asked eventually. Now we learn, we grow, we build something new. Aelith took his hand, her cool fingers intertwining with his. The galaxy expects us to fail. Prince Raxon expects to come back in a year and find me ready to accept his offer. Lord Thesson expects you to reveal some weakness he can exploit. And what do you expect? I expect us to surprise them all. She smiled, and it was the same real smile that had captured his heart on the first night. The smile that had nothing to do with politics or duty or expectation. The smile that was simply Aelith being herself. I love you, she said. I wanted you to know that. I did not say it before because I was not sure. But I am sure now. Do-hyun's heart swelled with an emotion he could barely contain. I love you too. I have loved you since you first spoke to me, since you showed me the person beneath the crown. Then we will face whatever comes together. She leaned against him, and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders. They watched the stars in silence. Two people from different worlds who had found each other against all odds. The galaxy was still watching. Critics still doubted. Enemies still plotted. The future was uncertain and dangerous. But in that moment, none of it mattered. Because humanity's greatest strength had never been weapons or technology or military might. It had always been something simpler. The ability to see others clearly, the courage to love honestly, the wisdom to choose connection over power. A human translator and an alien princess had just proven something that the galaxy would spend generations trying to understand. Sometimes the weakest among us are stronger than anyone expects, and sometimes being seen is worth more than all the armies in the universe. They stayed on the observation deck until the station's lights dimmed for the night cycle, holding hands and watching the endless stars. The future was waiting for them, full of challenges they could not yet imagine, but they would face it together, and that was enough.